Welcome back. In this video, I want to talk about risk-neutral individuals, and I want to define what does it mean to be risk-neutral. And if you have been following my videos, we talk about three definitions about risk-averse individuals. And in a similar vein, we could also define a risk-neutral individual as someone that has a linear utility function in certain money, certain or sure money. Right? So for an example would be utility of x is equal to 2x. And second equivalent definition is that a risk neutral individual is indifferent between the expected value of the lottery or the lottery itself. And of course, the corollary of this, all of these definitions are identical. Um, if you think about the certainty equivalent, this will imply that the certainty equivalent of any lottery is equal to the expected value of that lottery. That's a risk neutral individual. Okay, so if I were to bring you back to what we had in the previous video. So in the previous video, we looked at this particular lottery here. And if the person is risk neutral, this will imply that the certainty equivalent of lottery one for a risk neutral individual will exactly be equal to the expected value, which is exactly 0.5 pounds. Okay, so this person is happy to effectively pay half a pound for such a lottery at most. If it's less, you'll gladly take it. Let's look at a potential application or where this could come in handy. Imagine that you're an entrepreneur, okay, and you're going into business. And for any given month, you could be making 10,000 pounds, or you could be making zero. We're talking about an extreme example here, right? And imagine that in order to kind of do this work, you need an employee, okay? In order to make this happen. But whether you hire that employee or you don't hire that employee, you will still have to actually pay them salaries, right? So if you think about let's assume that we have a business owner that is risk neutral. And let's say that we have an employee that is risk averse. And then the question is, imagine that you need the employee in order to make the thing viable, right? But you have to pay them some sort of a certain amount. Okay, they don't really like certainty, and you're trying to see how are you going to split this, right? What is the sort of like the minimum amount perhaps that you'd have to pay some employee to be willing to take this role. Okay, so you could effectively tell the employee that actually sometimes I'm going to pay you some fraction of the 10,000 or the full 10,000, and sometimes I'm going to pay you zero. Okay, let's say the employee does all the work for you. Okay, um, so they're actually the one generating, but sometimes they get enough clients and they get the 10,000. Sometimes they don't get enough clients. Okay. Um, so the question is, could I go to the employee and tell them, hey, actually, I'm going to pay you a constant amount, whether you get these clients or you don't get these clients. Okay. Um, so in that particular case, what is the certainty equivalent of this employee? And let's say that the utility is square root of x. And the utility for this business owner is simply x. Okay. What's the certainty equivalent? Well, we did something similar, right? What's the certainty equivalent? Well, we know that the square root of the certainty equivalent for the employee will be equal to 0.5. I'm going to get square root of 10,000 plus 0.5 square root of 0. This would be 0.5 times 100, so this would be 50. And therefore, I'm looking for a certainty equivalent such that the square root of it is equal to 50. If I square both sides, then the certainty equivalent is 2,500 pounds. What that means is that if I actually go to this employee and there's this opportunity to generate 10,000 pounds in a given month or zero, but this employee is risk averse, he would be indifferent to either some months getting 10,000 and some months getting zero, or or you paying that employee 2,500 all the time. Okay. Now let's look at the business owner. What is the certainty equivalent of the business owner? Well, it's the certainty equivalent because his utility is just X. The certainty equivalent will be equal to 0.5 times 10,000 plus 0.5 times 0 will be equal to 5,000 pounds. With very few videos here, we've gone to a position where we have an application. Here, an employer, the business owner who's risk averse, can transact with the employee. Sorry, the business owner who's risk neutral can transact with an employee who's risk averse and come up to a Pareto improvement, to a more efficient outcome, where the business owner could, for example, pay the employee, so the monthly wages could be 3,000 pounds. The employee is super happy, right? Because, if you gave him the lottery, okay, and that was equivalent, a certain equivalent to getting 2,500 pounds a month. So the employee is getting an extra 500 pounds, right, of value. But what about the profits for the business owner? Well, he's willing, he values this lottery at 5,000 pounds. He's only paying 3,000 pounds. So there is a 2,000 pounds, if you like, profits that the business owner can effectively make, right? So imagine that the business owner could either take this opportunity on itself or not take this opportunity on itself. Okay, so here we have a really nice application of this idea of risk neutral. So we defined what a risk neutral was, and then we went to an application where a risk neutral could interact with a risk averse. And here we had the first application of an insurance where the business owner effectively provides insurance to the employee, but in doing so, if there's a mismatch between, or if there's a difference in risk neutrality and risk averse, it could be profitable for both parties. Okay. So with this, I'll stop here and I'll see you on the next video. We'll start building up this idea of insurance.